Hey, boys and girls, weather report for Wednesday, June 22nd, 2022. That's a lot of twos. I have an announcement.
Please announce.
What is your announcement?
I am 26,100 days old today.
Wow,
Nice.
that's a nice round number.
I just turned 100. Yep, I've been aging rapidly. So I've been looking back, wondering what the hell have I done with those 100 days? And
That's always a good question to ask.
I was literally about to say something.
I planted some flowers and I planted some willow trees. And I think other than that, the creationists. Oh, yeah, those guys.
Yeah.
Been paying attention to them a little bit.
Well, guys, right now, I think it's just us. Oh, yeah,
Seems
we
like
got
it.
Topdawg and
Seems like that's it.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
we had 6 watching, and then they fell away when we were late. We were like,
I guess they were hit by some genetic entropy.
yeah.
must be.
Well, Gur probably started a stream, pulled everybody
Oh.
away.
You might have.
Yeah. So it doesn't really matter what the hell we say or what we show, right?
Let's
So,
see. I have to
should
see.
Should we play this little clip?
Sure.
So we're gonna get a copyright strike.
Oh, never mind. Dave's here. Hey, Dave.
Yeah, Dave is here. He rarely gets to be with us much anymore due to work situation. So it's always great to have him here. And looky here. We have Bree.
Hey,
Just
Bree.
an email. Hi.
Hey,
Ray, how are you?
Oh, better than I've been in a long, long time.
really?
Really? Have you been sick?
No, I'm just free.
Oh,
Free?
Yes.
That's good. That's
Free
a good
Bree.
feeling.
Oh. Hi, guys.
Free? Huh?
I said, hi, guys. It's been a minute.
Hey.
it has. It has.
Are we live somewhere?
We are live. Yes.
We are live. Yes, we are. We're definitely live. We don't know
In
why.
another
I just
dimension.
found this in my email. I was like, Scott
Yeah.
sent me an email. So
I know because I never could get speed to send them. So
yeah.
then I
Oh, yeah,
realized I could send them myself pretty easily if I've already emailed you before. So
Yeah, I see we're on the weather report. Okay. Well, hi.
Yep.
What was the topic on the docket? Because I just popped in.
Oh, well, we got a couple of things about fish bones to go over. There's a
Ooh.
Stated Clearly video. And then we have this little Stephen Colbert clip where he did something fairly amusing. And we're going to get a copyright strike. But I could always decide to edit it out if they got really mean about it. But normally it doesn't make any difference. So.
Is it really worth it then?
It is. Lauren Boebert is apparently a Republican, and she said something stupid about Jesus carrying an AR-15 or something.
My.
And
Yeah, that sounds like something she would say.
yeah, so she was.
Would he carry it into the temple?
Yeah, well, he would.
Pharisees?
The government wouldn't have killed him if he had been carrying an AR-15.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently, now did Colbert put this together? This little video.
yeah, that's from the Colbert people. I guess
Yeah.
they used it as like one of those cold opens for
Yeah,
the
they got
late
to.
show.
They got too much money because this is pretty good production. values. But
That was a great production.
But anyway, okay, so this is Stephen's response to this whole thing here.
Your response.
Your response. Biblically, what is
Biblically, is that your response?
biblically? Okay, so you may be able to see the subtitles here. Let me go ahead. Anyway,
That was priceless.
that was priceless, right? That was worth a copyright strike. I don't really care. Anyway.
It wasn't that long. Just a
No,
couple
it wasn't.
seconds, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay, Bree, I have a question for you that has to do with the creeper life, I guess you would call it, because I don't guess you can call them bugs, but there's a little ant colony out next to my back porch.
Uh-huh.
And it spent quite a while developing the area. And then several days ago, these little white specks just appeared all over the little hill.
Oh, yeah.
And then the white specks kind of aren't there as much. And I've noticed these little round things that almost look like some of my, 81 milligram aspirin. And I just wondered what those things could be. Those two different stages. Is there something going on in the cycle of an ant hill or the cycle of ant?
Did you dig when you were planting? Did you dig up the colony? Because what they'll do is they have a nest chamber and they'll move their eggs, but you might have disturbed
my dog might have stepped on it or something.
Yeah.
Coming back in the house, but I was just.
One day we have a 3-season porch, and it was infested with carpenter ants. And they were actually scratching in the walls, and my son kept calling us up there to hear them, and we thought he was crazy for a while until we heard them, and then we went and rooted them out. And anyway, we put insecticide up there, and a couple of weeks later, there was a pile about an inch deep of what looked like eggs in the middle of the carpet on this 3-season porch. And they apparently gathered all of their eggs and brought them to the center of the room, which is like a 20 by 20 foot room. I mean, it's really big. And why they would bring them all the way to the center, it was really weird. And then they disappeared the next day. They were gone.
That particular area gets pretty hot. At the peak of the day, start this time of year, we just turn
about 100 degrees.
Summer. Like just sitting out there, what I'll usually do is because there's a couple places in my fence that the dog will try to get out of if I'm not watching her, and so I'll go sit there in the back porch in a chair. Sometimes my feet will be barefoot, but and so it was 90 degrees. The sun was just almost as high as it was going to get for the day, and my feet were just burning. And I thought, well, I wonder what it's like for that little ant hill. With the sun burning on it like that, doesn't that heat up the ground and make it uncomfortable for the ants? I don't know that they go that deep to stay cool.
Yeah, they go pretty deep.
There's no shade to speak of.
It's probably cooler than hell, within 6 inches of under the soil. I mean, it probably really starts to cool off.
Yeah,
that's why
the magical thing about soil.
Yep. So let's see what else.
We have some links in the description that kind of wanted to showcase.
Yep. So what do we got here? So Atheist Jr. is debating Kent Hovind on Standing for Truth tonight.
No.
Again?
All of our better advice. We've all told him. Yeah. Well, no, I don't think he's ever debated Kent, has he?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I thought he debated him twice already.
Oh, he has. Oh shit, I didn't know that. Anyway, so I guess he has. Why he would be doing it again, I don't know. But anyway, those two. Okay, he may have debated him before. He is really, really an enemy of Kent Hovind right now.
Yeah, that was his purpose when he started.
Kent's radar, right? Yeah. So it should be that should be a real good time. And we
imagine how unchallenging and boring it must be to debate Kent Hovind more than once, especially after you've spent time preparing for a debate and hearing all his spiel, and then debate him and hear his spiel, and all you have to look forward to is the same old Kent Hovind spiel.
He has canned responses.
It's just grating and everything. Oh, very interesting article up here on the screen.
Okay. Kent Hovind responses canned for freshness and priority, only $10.99 today.
Yep. Okay, then the next thing I linked is Lowen Bobert's Jesus Christ Superstar. So you can watch the whole thing. I think we played about half of it. And then we have Failures of Mathematical Anti-Evolutionary Theory by Jason Rosenhaus. He wrote a summary of his book here, feature article.
Yeah, that's the Skeptical Inquiry Journal.
Sorry to bow out so quick, but I gotta bounce, guys.
All right, we'll see you there, Bree.
See you, Bree.
See you, Bree.
Bye.
Yeah, because some people don't have time for books to read books, and I figure if it's TLDR for the book, then this article is by Jason Rosenhaus, and he's summarizing essentially the context of his book. So it's a good read, and I encourage everybody to read it, especially since we're going to be going over the chapters in his book.
Yep.
In the next few weeks.
Yeah, so we got a lot of stuff here: probability, information, combinatorial search. That's what we started with yesterday, and he just goes through the whole thing. So this is a good summary of the book.
And in this article, he and I'm thinking he'll probably do it in his book as well. He compares to comparing a flagellum to a boat motor, outboard motor, and saying it's just about as precise and exact as comparing a bunny rabbit to a cloud that's shaped like a bunny rabbit. These comparisons and analogies aren't evidence. And look for the link to Steve Bonham's short 5-minute video about 2 days ago, I think, that deals with that very subject. And it's just an inexact, imprecise, and it doesn't really help along a discussion to be appealing to what we see as design in humans, to say, well, then therefore nature must have been designed.
I don't know why, but that reminds me for some reason the misconstruing of phylogenetic methodology by I forget who exactly says this, but an octopus and an ink pen both have squirt ink, therefore they're related. That kind of thing. I don't know why that reminds me of that for some reason. Bunny cloud thing you just said.
Yeah.
I spotted some breaking research on flagellae, and they're uncovering these molecular mechanisms where little things crawl up, the length of the flagellum, and build them, they build them actively, that sort of thing. I don't know where I spotted that, so I can't give anybody a link, but that was pretty interesting. So they're basically digging in how those things are developing. And the thing about those flagellae is is that how you say the plural? I've never
pluralized flagellum.
I've never pluralized it. But anyway, they're related to cilia.
Flagella. Flagellum.
Yeah, okay. There you go. Flagella. Okay. Get flagellae. That's kind of
well. Now I can cross that off my bucket list.
Right. Now we know. But anyway, flagellum, they're related to cilia, and are related to cell remodeling, and are related to embryology. I mean, they're ubiquitous in all of life. They're how you digest your food. They're how your white blood cells work. Just tons of things have these little extensions on the edge of, on the membrane.
Yeah.
And they create these
most people think it's literally a little spike in the cell kind of growing outwards, but nope, it's more like just an extension of the cell membrane, or in most cases a bacteria, the cell wall.
Yeah, they actually develop so that they basically, the bottom of the cell, it grabs onto the substrate, and the top of the cell pushes outward, and then the top of the cell will grab onto the substrate and then pull the other part of the cell with it. So a cell can actually move across, like if you cut yourself, the way your wound heals is that these little mobile cells will start to stick actin out over the wound, and they'll basically crawl out across, which is really creepy. But that itchy feeling you get when you're healing could well be little cells creeping out across your wound. and they close it over. And that's also how a lot of the development of an embryo involves these actin filaments moving differentially across the cell and building themselves at the leading edge of the moving cell, and then destructing themselves at the other end, and they just keep moving and crawling forward. There's a lot of crawly things going on inside your body.
Kind of like a slime mold.
Yeah.
How it moves around.
Yep.
Or an amoeba.
What do we got here? Breaking bread with atheists, Rebekah. Wait a minute. Okay, are they going to break bread with some atheists, or are they just going to talk about us?
Is this live, or did it just finish?
I think it was 4 hours ago.
Oh,
they're just going to talk about us.
Is it going to be like an hour of generalizing and making sweeping stereotypical statements about atheists?
Probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually watched a little bit of it. It wasn't. I probably watched at least the second half of it, I would say, and it wasn't anything interesting. They, just talking religion basically, and what convinced them, and what should they evangelize, different things like that. Nothing much.
Yep.
I mean, it just seems like a silly question to me. Like, who cares what atheists say and what they don't say? Like,
yeah.
I
don't
understand it.
We are taking up space in their brains because they worry about it. And one thing that really takes up a lot of space in their brains lately is ERVs and transposons.
Yep.
They're really upset about that because it actually, when you start looking at them, it's slam dunk proof of evolution. I mean, there's no way around it. No way around it.
Well, I do give props to SFT. I do appreciate him coming forward with that book, because it's kind of made this issue of ERVs resurface. So I guess we can talk about it and all the new discoveries about it. So
yeah, it
does do something useful.
It put all the ignorance in one big bag for us, and that's really handy,
And I think ERVs ought to become a premise for a lot of good, bad, and mediocre science fiction.
Right. Now, I have a book on bones that's about 1,400 pages long, and
is it Contested Bones?
I think it's called Bones. I don't know what the hell it's called.
Literally just bones.
It's about bones. Yeah, it's about bones.
Bones.
And it starts out with fish bones and cartilage, and it explains all the cell types and all of the goings-ons in bones.
Bones, them bones.
And it also does a little bit of paleontology, and that's what Yara Haridy, I don't know if that's how you pronounce her name. She's a paleontologist, and it just produced a paper which I linked below the two videos about her. So John Perry from Stated Clearly, I get those two confused. I don't know. Anyway, he did a little clip of their interview, and then her entire interview is linked on the bottom, and I linked both of those videos. And she talks about fish evolution a little bit, but let's play a little bit of it and see what she says. So,
throughout evolutionary history, and you just published a big paper on that.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that for a little bit here?
Sure, absolutely. This kind of comes from reading, the early textbooks of biology and just, learning, okay, A, B, and C, this is what happens. This is how bones do. The end. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, cool. We know how bones do. And then I made the mistake of looking at fish. And it was a mistake because fish are incredibly complicated and they stem from way before tetrapods, right? So they come way down farther in the tree than we do. And so that doesn't mean they're more primitive. At least modern fish does not mean they're more primitive.
Yeah, one thing that I noticed in the bone book that I have when I started reading about it is that fish actually have more bone types than we do. And it's kind of interesting. They have a lot more like bone tissues and cartilages than we do.
Right.
So they're a little more varied, and that could be because they they have also been evolving as long as we have.
Right,
But,
or if
you know,
not longer, and there are many more species of this bony fish than, or I guess non-tetrapod, but it gets confusing. But
we need to get to where we can do polls, because I really want to know how many people who view our videos have bone books in their library. I have 0 bone books.
You have 0
And,
bone? Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool that Speed has at least 1 bone book, not counting contested bones. That's not a bone book. That's a
It's not
creationist waste of paper.
I have books about bones, but not just about bones.
Anyway, so we branched off from, like a common source, right? Whatever gave rise to tetrapods and Sarcopteridae, and then tetrapods, and then the fish, of course, kept going along their lines, right? And now at that branch off point, there could have been a much more complicated bone proteome. In other words, they could have had a lot more types of tissues and bones even back then, because back then we had this break into a massive diversity in animals, right? Somewhere around 700 million years ago, basically, when the whole bone thing started out. She gets into that a little bit. But the interesting thing is that some of our diseases, and I still haven't found a source for this, and I probably shouldn't talk about it until I do, but it's in that bone book. But some of the diseases in humans are kind of related to some of those bone ancestors in fish. And they've been able to, and that's one of the, like, one stunning example of why medicine needs to pay attention to evolution.
Yeah.
Because there are some remnants left over, that actually can cause diseases in humans.
Among many other such reasons.
Right. Okay. Anyway, we'll see.
It just means they took a different branch of life and they had a different tool set to work with. So everything looks really different in fish, and they just play by their own rules, which makes my life really complicated.
Yeah.
So I saw what modern fish were doing. I saw what, modern mammals, us, and reptiles and everything they were doing. And
I like the way she pointed that out. Modern fish and modern,
I like the way she phrased it. They kind of worked with what they had, what was handed to them, basically. Which, I mean, in a sense, it is kind of true, because I mean, like inheritance, you end up with certain things. You don't mix and match all over the place because your parents had certain traits and their parents had certain traits, and so on and so forth. So I just really like the way she phrased that, and it shows how evolution just modifies things, despite creationists say it doesn't usually come up with structures de novo.
Yeah. Okay.
I wanted to just trace it back and see when certain divergences happened. So to understand why this is cool, I have to give you guys a little bit of Bone 101.
Yeah. So, one quick question first. What group of fish were you looking at?
Teleos, bony fish, basically the ones that make up the vast majority. So think tuna, think salmons, think opah, not sharks. So bony fish, the ones that would end up on your dinner table. Nothing extremely special, nothing extremely specialized, and they were still doing everything really differently than all the textbooks said, because apparently nobody looks at fish. So when you're looking for these rules that are supposed to guide all bone, and they have to apply to all animals that have bone. Otherwise, they're not rules, and therefore you have to dig deeper. And for me, digging deeper means digging deeper in time.
Mm-hmm.
So, Bone 101. So you got to know that basically there's 3 bone cell types that you just have to keep in mind. There's the bone building cells, osteoblasts, your bone destroying cells, your osteoclasts, and your osteocytes, which I call your bone maintaining cells, or the ones that kind of keep everyone in line. They orchestrate bone remodeling, they orchestrate a bunch of different things. They sense pressure in your bone. They live in the bone, and they think of squid arms or octopus arms, and they reach out everywhere. So there's a bunch of those, and they're the most numerous. So there's your 3 cells.
So one thing I'm not sure if she mentions that you know about bones is that it's a source of phosphorus, that it stores phosphorus and it stores calcium, and it's a nice storage mechanism, and they think that is how the very first bones evolved, is as storage mechanisms for phosphorus.
Yep.
And that's one of the ideas. And then it went to well, I think she gets into it here.
Cell types. Now, all books say that those are your 3 cell types, one and done, that's it.
Right.
So it's pretty insane that the vast invertebrates today, the vast majority, don't have osteocytes. And all of
bony
those,
fish. Yeah.
all of those are bony fish, which is just like, come on, you guys, like you cannot follow a single rule, like rude. So I looked back in time and realized they did have osteocytes at some point in the Cretaceous, and then lost it, and some things lost it even more recently. We're not 100% sure. There's a couple of new papers that are coming out about exactly when certain things were lost. Anyway, they come from ancestors that had osteocytes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. We're back to following the rules. But if you go back just even a little bit farther, before jaws evolved, before limbs evolved, before any of that, so you're looking at mud-slurping jawless fish, early Devonian, Silurian, the earliest vertebrates, armored jawless fish. And you look at them.
Dandikins.
Again,
Mud slurping.
Mud slurping. I love mud slurping jawless fish.
Yeah.
Describes a lot of people in Arkansas and Alabama that I know of. But anyway,
Okay.
shall we continue?
again, don't have osteocytes. And they don't have visible osteonal remodeling, the type of remodeling that we talked about earlier that's guided by your blood vessels.
Okay.
They don't have it.
Now, one of the things that in the full video, the full interview, in the very beginning, they get into primate skulls and bone remodeling and those ridges, you know, that chimpanzees and gorillas develop, and how some of that stuff happens. And they get into a whole bunch of stuff about bone remodeling and how, you know, like until we're 25, our bones are remodeling constantly. Like we're almost molting constantly, like insects, because, you know, we have to grow in size. So anyway.
Right.
It doesn't exist. Okay. So now we know that all our bones and all the superpowers that our modern bone hasn't always existed, but they were acquired through evolution, and possibly in a stepwise fashion, possibly all at once with one animal. We're still not 100% sure. When you look a little bit later, there's another jawless fish.
Oh, there's things evolutionists don't know.
That is a funny looking fish. It looks like a toy made of rubber that you got to play with or something. It's just strange.
But okay, the next part is even more surprising and even more wonderful, I think.
That has osteocytes and has a bunch of other features that makes us think, okay, those are the ancestors to jawed vertebrates, and then from those, the earliest jawed vertebrates are the ones that have osteonal remodeling. And from there, you get, you know, all your splits of cartilaginous fish and ray-finned fish and all the fish that we have today, and then sarcopterygians, the lobe-finned fish, the ones that lead eventually to us, tetrapods. The story of bone is...
That's your grandpa.
That's right. Fins to what evolution?
Yep.
Fins to pharmacist evolution?
Fins to pharmacist evolution. That's grandpa right there. That kind of looks like my grandpa. He kind of looked like that.
All grandpas look like that eventually.
Really extremely simplified external armor. They look like beetles. They have only bone on the outside. They don't have any bone on the inside.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay.
They have no bone on the inside. It's a cartilaginous skeleton on the inside, bone on the outside only. And the bone on the outside is covered in, pause for effect, dentine.
Oh.
There you go. Dentine. Your teeth.
Teeth.
Which is what our teeth are made of.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So the first tissues that make our teeth today actually started out as ways that our mud slurping ancestors protected themselves.
Yeah.
So
there's a phrase again.
That's the story of teeth. They're all interconnected. And I got asked a really good question, which is why? You know, why did they need all this armor? Why did they need to put teeth on the outside and bone? Why did bone evolve in the first place, right?
Mhm.
You get to that point where, okay, so not everything existed, not all the features existed. Why did the very first mud-slurping fish even evolve, though? What was the point? You know, maybe they were happy to be soft, squirmy, wormy things. Why didn't we just continue down that road?
You know, I would prefer
And
to be. I'm sorry,
the answer is
mannequins.
very likely because of Europe.
Whoops. There you go.
I would prefer to
Why?
become a soft slurpy thing.
Okay. Look at that mother eating the soft slurpy thing.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, because he was the soft slurpy thing. So these are arthropods, basically like,
These giant sea scorpions that tried to basically eat our early vertebrate ancestors, and they're like, this is not how we're doing this. I would rather be armored and survive. Thank you. And
yep. So Grandpa got some armor. Anyway, I'm gonna let. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. So
I just want to say, I wish that she was like a tour guide at, you know, some major museum, because she actually makes the sections that I avoid seem interesting.
Yeah, she's really fun, and I love her style in explaining things.
Yeah.
Now, the paper that she did. Let me see. Where's the paper? Where's the paper? Okay, bone metabolism and evolution.
Really see paper.
Oh, Z paper. Get rid of Z face to get the Z paper. Here's one of her papers anyway. So, boom. Bone metabolism and evolutionary origin of osteocytes. Novel application of fib-sem tomography, which I don't know anything about. But it's got some wonderful pictures on top of it. Oh, what's this?
Ooh.
Oh, those trees. Oh, don't.
Phylogeny.
We just make those up.
Is there any way you can zoom in on that? I can't really read it from
Yeah,
here.
we just get like a random assortment of pipe cleaners and label makers, and just kind of throw these things all together out of fantasy.
Actinopterygy and Sark. Okay, here we are. Let's see. Okay, can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Yeah, you can. Okay, yeah. There's our branch right there. There's Grandpa.
Yep.
And that must be Grandma. They are. No, maybe not. Okay. No, Grandma would be down there. Anyway, so that's
I
us.
have a question about phylogeny.
Money fish. Yeah.
These trees, they're always viewed as or portrayed as two-dimensional. Is there any sense in which it makes it more useful to represent these as in more than like two dimensions, like a third dimension that maybe shows how far apart they are, or
basic.
That's a very
that's
conceptual,
a good
high-level question.
Yeah.
I just was wondering.
To me, you can probably represent it either way, because fundamentally the relationships are determined by the branching order of the nodes where these terminal branches connect to one another as you go back toward the root of the tree. So yeah, you could definitely, like, if you had the means, like maybe like a graphic simulator of some sort, you could portray it in 3 dimensions, but I don't think it would fundamentally alter the information conveyed by it that much, because the branching order would still be the same, even if you rotated them around in a third dimension, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to find a picture, though, because there is a way that they represent phylogenies that I like a lot more, with the thick lines. You know what I mean? They're
kind of demonstrating how its population's branching off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, those are kind of useful.
Yeah, those I like, because they give you a much better sense of what's really going on.
Right. And then it kind of, are you talking about the ones you zoom in on the thick line, and it basically becomes a twirl of individual lineages and that kind of population level? Yeah, I like those.
Yeah, I'm trying to find one, but I
sort of like a drill down.
Unfortunately, they're not
Yeah.
they're not popular as I would like them to
But
be.
I'm not an expert, so there could very well be some three-dimensional way that kind of helps convey some information here. But as far as I'm aware, it wouldn't do that much if it makes sense. Except to maybe portray the more tree of life metaphor, kind of more literally, I guess.
Well, that one is close, but
Because obviously trees aren't two-dimensional.
yeah, not quite
Right.
what I'm looking for. Yeah. Anyway, there different ways to display the data would be handy.
Yeah.
But
And that's what I mean. Like fundamentally, you can display it in different ways, but the information conveyed by it is still the same because the branching order is still the same.
okay, Jerry, Otangelo has been banned like 5 times independently on Atheist Experience, but for some reason Matt just keeps bringing him back. I don't know why. He gets banned a lot, but anyway, yeah. So this is the paper, and yeah, we don't make. It would be interesting to show like the actual meat of some of those phylogenies, and that's some of that stuff I'm going to talk to you about backstage.
Sure.
Interesting little illustration right here. Let's see here.
What is that?
Right over. Not sure what the hell this is. Branching level. Yeah, there you go. There's a 3D. The 3D something. I'm not sure what the hell.
Yeah.
Illustrating exactly.
Lacuna. What's a
Yeah.
lacuna?
Well, the lacuna. There's 2 different kinds of bone remodeling, and one is like this where these little like caves in your bone will basically start getting eaten away around the edges in order to give you more phosphorus or calcium, or in some manner change your metabolism. And then the other method is like actual changing the shape of the bone, and that is called osteogenesis, or no, osteo something. I forget what that one's called. I have to get my bone book out, take a look. But anyway,
there's that reference again. Bone book. Put a 1 in the side chat if you own a bone book.
I gotta go find my bone book.
That would be interesting to know, because I don't. Like I said, I fully admit I don't. I guess I'm not a real science enthusiast.
I put my bone book away. Oh no, there it is. Bones and cartilage. Oh.
It's hard not to think of bones as just sticks made of calcium.
Yeah.
But they are living organs.
Oh yeah. They're a lot more complicated than just.
This is from 2015,
bones. Yeah.
second edition. I'm hoping
That's a big book.
That's a big book. Yeah, it's
So what's that? $175 to $200?
About $200 for.
Oh wow.
And it has embryonic origins and a lot of paleontology stuff in the beginning, and it just gets into bones. And
Bones.
Yeah, I wish I had more.
Embryonic origins. I know why you had that book out.
I've actually like read some of this shit, but no, not all that much of it. Not as much as I'd hoped to read when I bought the book. It's like, I'm going to read this book. No, you aren't. Never going to read this fucking book. Don't have time. You know why? Fucking creationists. Creationists keep my time up. And other things like planting trees. But yeah, bones are really interesting, and the evolution of bones is just a really interesting story. There's a whole lot in this book about, that gives you hints about that.
You know what the number one impediment for learning about bones and other really deep and valuable subjects?
The size of the book.
No, the presence of streaming media.
Oh yeah.
Because I'll get a book and then make a commitment to read from it that particular evening, and then boom, you're watching all 6 episodes of Time Traveler's Wife.
Yep.
That's just a hypothetical. That doesn't ever happen to me. But
yeah, I assure you, everyone out there, Time Traveler's Wife, the series will enrich your life. And
it's on HBO Max.
Did you notice that it has a lot to do with answers in atheism?
What? Well, he
Did
talks
you not?
about hope being like a bad thing.
Well,
But
he talks about, basically you have now. You only have now.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Don't
yeah.
regret the
'Cause-
past. Don't try to change
Yeah.
the future. All that shit. Yeah. You have
The
now.
patented answers in atheism mentality of life.
Yep. And it
There's
has a lot of philosophy in that series. If
there
you
is, there really is, and maybe we can discuss this backstage. But there's just kind of a little plot hole in it that just has been kind of bothering me.
Oh, really?
You don't really discover the plot hole till it's very late in the 6-part series.
I wonder if I
season.
spotted that because I had a problem with something. I was like, "What happened here? How did this work?"
Yeah, so it might be interesting to discuss it backstage, but I don't want to spoil it for anybody. And I've had a crush on that lady that plays the time traveler's wife for ever since Game of Thrones. It's like, wow, this is a beautiful woman. But anyway,
Yep.
To me, the criteria that makes a good TV show or documentary, for that matter, are it treats the audience as thinking individuals capable of making sense of what's actually being conveyed in the show, instead of just, oh, we need to dumb this down for the audience's sake.
Right.
yeah, and I think the healthy attitude to take into any documentary, no matter how good you feel it is to always realize, they could be bullshitting me in some way.
Yeah, that's true.
Because some documentaries are very gripping, and you think you've learned something that maybe not everybody else knows because you watched it, but then you realize they kind of worked with the information to skew it a bit. And,
yeah, that's true.
I think maybe a rule for living that we ought to have among ourselves is that if you find any documentary that interests you at all, you obligate yourself to do further research into the subject to make sure that you're not being emotionally manipulated by the
Right.
documentarian.
Well, I think another thing, especially for science documentaries in general, is not trying to kind of push, oh, science is cool, science is awesome. Look at the stars and all the beautiful things. Like let the audience figure it out for, like, not obvious. Don't let them have to figure everything out because they're not scientists, obviously. But like, let them interact with the information and discover it for themselves, and I guess find meaning from it. Like, find it awe-inspiring on their own path, instead of having the documentary just tell them, oh, this is awe-inspiring. Like, yeah, if you just say that over and over again, then I don't know. In my view, that doesn't make as good a science documentary.
Right.
So, is Umbrella Academy season 3, is the entire season out, Icarus? Because I didn't want to, because I thought they were releasing it like one episode.
I don't even know if I finished season 2 for some reason. I think I might have.
I think I did.
Did season 2 come out like sporadically?
No, that came out all at once.
All
But
at
now
once. Okay.
yeah, now they've been metering things again on Netflix and
Now, one of the characters in there was played by the person that used to be known as Ellen Page. What is his name now? Am I thinking of the right person? The one that was in Juno.
yeah, Ellen Page, yeah,
So what's his name now?
his.
Yeah, he's a his now.
Oh, I didn't know this.
Yeah, I think she's, or he. Here, I confused myself. Has identified.
Oh,
as
he's still
male.
Ellen. You could still do Ellen, right? Right. Yeah, this I didn't know. Here we go. Elliot Page.
Okay, Elliot Page. Okay, makes sense.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, that's a wonderful series also. I'm showing some pictures from this whole entire interview with Yara Haridy, which is really great on John Perry's Genetics and Evolution, stated casually. I'm pretty excited about this, and it's linked in my description, so people can. Oh, what's eating the universe? That looks good. With Paul Date.
Is something eating the universe? Should I have nightmares?
The Royal Institution.
It's cosmic origin.
What's eating the universe? Oh, I started watching that for some reason. What is eating the universe?
What's eating the universe itself? Probably.
Yeah, Royal Academy or Royal. What is this? Royal.
Those Royal Institution lectures are often very good.
Oh yeah,
they're pretty cool. Yep. Anyway, guys, well, I was going to put the link out in chat and see if anybody wanted to join us.
Let's go ahead and do that. See what we can get stirred up.
I have something I'd like to put forward. Maybe that'll stir things up a bit. Do you? I guess how much have creationists still been touting out the dinosaur soft tissue stuff lately?
They haven't talked about it for a while, but I'm sure it's going to come around again. But yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah. Wait. So it's Mary Schweitzer, and then who are Armitage, right? And who are the other main people, or are there any?
Oh, there's another one that Saul Cordova keeps mentioning, but I keep forgetting his name. It's like it's a real common name, like Rob Thomas or something like that, or I don't know. But yeah, Rob he's Zombie. The one that Rob Zombie. He's the one that wrote that. Like he wrote like 100-page paper on collagen, where he took collagen, and then right in the paper he admits that he lied to the people at the dating lab about what he was doing, about how old the samples were, and then he came up with all these.
Shame.
They came up with
lying about your paper.
Yeah, and then the other thing is that if you were to purify collagen from a dinosaur, from a fossil, right? If you were to take the collagen remnants and purify them, you would have to use chemistry to do that. And if you use chemistry to do that, you are going to just infect the hell out of your sample, right? So you can't do carbon dating unless you have a very pristine sample that has not been touched by the outside world. So I don't know what the hell he was doing, but he came up with like this table where the dates were all over the place because, of course, he didn't give them the right sample parameters so that they could test it properly. But he wrote 100 and some page paper. Remember we showed it a few months back?
Yeah.
I have it somewhere. I'll have to dig that up. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, speaking of carbon dating, you know how they bring up all the C14 and the diamonds and the dinosaur bones and whatnot, and well, it kind of brings up this general misconception that the reason carbon dating isn't used for like things older than about 50,000 years, I think, or somewhere around then, isn't because the half-life, the amount of C14 goes to an undetectable amount in that long. That's not the fundamental reason why. The reason why it's not used is because eventually at a certain age, it's impossible for the instruments that you're using to measure these parent to daughter isotope ratios to distinguish between some background level of C14, which naturally occurs in the environment thanks to cosmic rays and constantly bombarding the earth and whatnot, versus actual C14 in the sample you're looking at.
Well, one of the reasons that they don't carbon date diamonds is because they use diamonds to calibrate the dating. So they use it to calibrate their equipment, right?
Right.
Because it has such a tiny amount that's one of the things that they use to calibrate the equipment. So if that's what you're using to calibrate your equipment, and then you try to measure that tiny amount, you're right there within your error bars, and you're going to end up with dates all over the goddamn place.
Right. It's basically noise is what it is. And
right.
Yeah. Basically within the error bars.
I was about to kind of paraphrase it to, it sounds like you're distinguishing, saying the instrumentation at a certain level becomes unable to distinguish signal from noise.
Right.
Yeah. It's basically, and like, I mean, it's kind of obvious that when you think about it, like not all tools are equipped for all the different situations you can think of. I mean, like an analogy I could use would be, and I think Talk Origins uses this analogy, is basically if you have a wristwatch and it stops working in a certain situation, or it can't measure a certain time extent, like femtoseconds or whatnot, or years for that matter, does that mean that wristwatches in general are useless? Of course not. Yeah. It just means that it's a tool for a given job, and it's premature to extend it beyond the limits of the uncertainties, the error bars.
And that's one of the reasons why you tell the lab where you got the sample and what age you expect, is because that allows them to determine what precision they have to use in order to test that sample, or how to set their equipment up. And if you lie to them, you're going to end up with fucking crazy results. You know, you're not going to end up with the right results. Depends on what
I know one of the hardest, well, of course, this was in Arkansas, so maybe it's not true everywhere, but one of the hardest concepts they had in terms of getting chemistry students to understand was the idea of significant digits, in that, you know, if you have an instrument that can be accurate to, you know, 0.00001 to the right of the decimal or whatever, but you have another instrument for another part of the experiment that can only be accurate to 0.00, you know, to the third decimal place, then you're limited to 3 significant digits because of the use of your instrumentation. And that was just really hard for a lot of people to understand.
Yeah. And well, now that you bring up like what they kind of expect the age to be, because I know some craziest is going to take this out of context. It's not like we're guessing. Right. It's not like we're guessing what the age is to be per se. It's like when you're doing these radiometric dating measurements, you're not doing them in a one-off isolation kind of thing. Because even before radiometric, if you actually look into it, even before radiometric dating techniques were discovered or invented, I guess you could say, we already had relative dating techniques that were well established. And once we start,
you're going to have to exit and come back in, Steve.
I hate you guys.
Wait, is it still doing it? Doesn't seem like it.
Doesn't seem to be. I don't know what that was.
That was weird.
Oh well. Continue.
Yeah. So it's basically like when we date a certain layer, we're able to correlate that to other layers thanks to biostratigraphy and other the law of superposition, for example, which for the audience sake is basically rather obvious thing when you think about it, that rock layers that are near the bottom of a sequence are older than the ones closer to the top. I mean, that kind of makes sense. Basically, when we've already done a lot of these measurements and we're making a new measurement, it's not like we're doing it in isolation. We're taking notes about the geological location the sample we're dating is coming from, relative to other layers, for example, and that kind of gives us information about, like say, using index fossils of a particular layer. If the layer you're dating is correlated to those index fossils, which you know are from a certain time period, then that kind of narrows things down a little bit. So basically what I'm trying to say is we're not just guessing about what we expect the age to be before we actually date it.
For instance, the younger and older Dryas periods are they call it that because they use a flower called the Dryas as as an index fossil.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you knew all that, man.
I don't know everything.
Yeah, look that up. It's very interesting. That's what kind of nailed down for me the understanding of index fossils. There are certain things.
Well, that's interesting how you can use a flower as an index fossil, because generally you're using more harder animal kind of things.
They were very ubiquitous. They were everywhere in certain climates, and so they have that period where driest flowers prospered or whatever.
Well, given the fossil
record and so on and so forth.
Yeah, well, given the fossil record of flowers isn't that good, I think maybe you'd use out more recent samples. Probably would be my guess.
So it's like if you're a detective and you have a body, and you're trying to figure out who murdered this person, and you take some samples and you send them to the lab, and the lab says, what are these? And you tell them, well, my daughter put her tooth under the pillow for the tooth fairy, and this is a sample from that, right? I mean, that isn't how the way you solve a murder is you take all of the available information you have, and you play one bit of information against another, and you're forensically trying to determine what the hell happened. But did you observe the person being murdered?
No. Right. Yeah, that's a good analogy for it.
That's why we don't convict murderers in the United States.
Yeah, right. We never convict them because we never.
We're just using basic scientific method according to creationists. Is that if you didn't observe it, sorry.
Yep.
Apparently, DNA testing used on that same thing can't tell you that goats and cows are related, for example.
So who put this paper? You put this paper in chat again, Scott. The same paper from the other day. Origin and Evolution. Peptidyl Transferase Center from.
Oh yeah. That was something that I think it was Stupid Horror Energy. Gave us the link, and I just wanted to make sure.
We were supposed to cover it, but I haven't read the paper yet.
Okay, just putting it in. That was in the side chat. I mean, okay, I put that in the private chat just to make sure we didn't forget about it.
I think I better put it in the description again, just in case, because you can never have these things in the description too many days in a row.
Because I doubt a lot of people go back and look at our descriptions for links more than a day or two previous.
I do all the time.
If I can. Sorry, go ahead.
You do, the channel owner?
Yeah, I'm always underestimating, or I always have a bad estimate about how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And and what I would like is if YouTube would allow me to dump those into a database so I could search for them all. But go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah. So going back to what someone said earlier about were you there? Kind of. I mean, it's a kind of
were you there?
Silly question.
Yeah. And
were you there?
The shit about asking for a paper, okay, like the koala, ERV. Right. We know that it happened within the last.
But yeah, let's talk about that now that we're here.
Okay, imagine that you're a scientist, okay, and you want to actually write a paper where you observed this ERV jumping, right? Well, they fucking did that. They have two generations of koalas, and they have one that doesn't have it, and then the younger generation, the offspring, does have it, right? So they know that somehow it jumped in that offspring, right? And it didn't jump in the parent. So so it wasn't in the germline. But anyway, suppose you wanted to observe it jumping into the germline. Well, you would have to watch koalas for several thousand years, take their genome every time they had offspring, every single genome, compare them. But then all you would have, it's like you still haven't observed it. All you have is two genomes, one where it exists and one where it doesn't, right?
True. Yeah.
So you haven't observed it, right? So how are you going to observe it? So you got to get a really, really tiny electron microscope.
Right. That's why the thing of actually seeing something is kind of a rather terribly strict definition of observation.
Right. When you light some charcoal on fire, do you observe the oxygen attaching to carbon? You don't observe it. You do it by inference, and that's how science works. And it just so happens that we have inference steps for every tiny little step of evolution. And then when we put it all together, it's called a story. But calling it a story does not mean it's fiction. Okay? All things are stories. Even nonfiction is a story. Basically, you put together a story, and you infer to the very best evidence you have.
Right.
And in the case of evolution, we have every tiny micro step. I mean, we know what is possible and what is not possible in a genome. We know about duplications, deletions. We know about copy multiplication. Like
Right.
when you end up with these simple repeat areas that they end up multiplying. We know all that shit, and we know what happens.
Wait, so to clarify, so these repeat sequences over and over again, is that the same thing as copy number variation?
Yes, yeah, because if there's some damage to the DNA, when it repairs the damage, if it doesn't know exactly how to hook those two strands up, well, if you have a TTT, and you have an area that has TTTTTT, right? It doesn't know exactly where to put that TTT in all of those T's, so it'll end up overlapping a little bit, and you end up with a copy number, increase or decrease depending on what happens. But we know the mechanics of all that, and the creationists, to insist that evolution didn't happen, they would have to prove that cannot happen. And we have proven that it does happen, and it can happen. And it happens in all of us. You have different copy numbers than I have. And it's like this whole pile of shit that they've tied up in a bundle and try to deliver to the public is so full of holes that I don't understand why people aren't just laughing them out of the rooms.
Yeah.
And yet,
but it's kind of that. It's kind of that thing where how do you know that a certain structure evolved in a particular way? Well, of course we can't know that this is literally how it exactly evolved, and we can't do that for all structures for that matter. It's just unfeasible. But what we can do is come up with a plausible scenario that best accounts for the evidence we have available, just like we do for any freaking idea in science. So it's just the same process over and over again.
It is so frustrating.
I can rant about this stuff for hours, to be honest.
Toxic
atheist. That fed up with it.
What is toxic atheist? Can't have toxic without ox in the middle of it.
What the heck are they talking about on the side chat?
I don't know. Let's go see. With the help of science, we become more accurate.
David's been awfully quiet.
I think we need to give Stephanie a wrench so that Ox won't keep deleting her stuff because he gets mad at her.
He's deleting her comments?
Yeah.
She was doing a little preaching. That's all.
Well,
it was pretty minor preaching, but nothing.
Who deleted Toxic Atheist? Somebody deleted. So Toxic Atheist.
Icarus did. Icarus. Oh. Yeah. He might have a good. I don't know a toxic atheist, unless I've met them before, a long time ago and just forgot.
I have no idea, guys. Don't delete comments unless they're really offensive. Should
we maybe take away Ox's privileges for now?
No, I can't do that to Ox.
You're
Ox is kind of like an ox in the china closet.
Now, has Stephanie abused?
I don't think
wrench privileges before.
I thought I'd give Stephanie a wrench, but then.
Well, let's give her a wrench for protection purposes and see how things play out.
Yeah. Okay, I gave Stephanie a wrench, or at least I think I did. So.
I don't know if you highlighted this one, but it's just a cute little joke.
Oh, nice! Oh, nice. That is a good joke. Okay, I think we should shoot her in the head, guys. What do you think?
It's up to you.
You guys want to make any predictions about when's the debate? Like in 2 hours, give or take?
Let me take a look here.
I wonder if Stephanie adopted a
7 p.m. Central.
Okay. Oh well, we can talk about that in the background.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're going to shoot her in the head,
And David, it was certainly wonderful having you here with us today.
Yeah,
even though you were quiet.
I seeing you here.
Thank you. Yeah.
Or do you have any
Pleasure
final
being here.
thoughts, David, before we end it? Anything you want to say?
Well, one thing. Well, Speed, I loved the conversation that you had on Rebekah's channel. You guys were, lots of people were having chats with, what's that, the new guy that came
yeah,
on the
Kenny.
scene?
Empty Tomb Kenny.
Kenny. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was. He really got under my skin about alcoholics. Claiming that all alcoholics are sitting around craving all the time, unless they
Yeah.
find.
Yeah, I need to understand reality before you go mouthing off about something as destructive
serious.
as addiction.
I
Yeah,
love
I
the
was-
one comment that he had. Well, he was saying something. I can't remember exactly what he was talking about, but basically the difference between all the different sects of Christianity. Each of them have their own specific beliefs or whatever. I think that was kind of like the gist of the conversation. And you said, Jesus, that kind of thought is what starts wars or something like that. You said to him.
Yep.
Yeah, that was funny. He
Yeah.
kind of went silent for a second there. He was like, didn't know what to say, and then he's like, oh. Then he started his preaching back up again.
Yeah. So
Kind
I
of similar to accusing someone of having a psychological disorder when you don't know the first thing about how to diagnose psychological disorders.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out about drugs and alcoholism that should just stun everybody is, okay, I deal with some alcoholics who are currently haven't been sober very long, and they have court proceedings. And I was privy to one of those court proceedings, and there were 20 people in the room on this Zoom court hearing, right? And out of those 20 people, all 20 of them had drug and alcohol related problems, like they had committed a crime, but every one of them were up for drug and alcohol treatment. So behind every crime was drug addiction and alcoholism, behind every goddamn one of them. And I was thinking, what if there was no such thing as drug and alcohol addiction? That courtroom would have been empty. And can you imagine how many trillions of dollars we spend in this country over the decades on just prosecuting and housing criminals because of drugs and alcoholism, because of drug addiction?
There's lots of books and articles out there showing that the war on drugs, launched in the late 70s, early 80s, is just a money-making scam.
Yeah, and it's and the other thing is that every one of them got a fine of around $1,000. So it could be, but it's costing us money to prosecute these things. So it's costing taxpayers money to put these people away, to prosecute them, all of this bullshit. And it just amazes me how much of our problems are related to drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And we never talk about that much. So anyway,
does anyone know what TOS stands for?
Tons of shit. Yeah, Ox defines it in his last little thing.
Oh,
it's the second to the last.
I'm trying to figure out what Icarus is saying by TOS, because I never heard that before.
I'm pretty sure that using alt to get around a ban timeout is against the terms of service.
Okay.
Oh, terms of service. Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Wait,
Okay,
is that
guys.
actually a thing?
I'm trying to kill this stream.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Do it. Just do it, man. Do it.
Go back to the world.